All right, today we are diving into wuxing. Now, this is a concept that a lot of us probably think we already know, but we're going to look at it through a totally different lens, one that turns it from just ancient philosophy into a really powerful tool for understanding the world around us. So, right off the bat, let's just challenge the main idea. When you hear wood, fire, earth, metal, and water, your mind probably jumps to, actual physical things. But what if that's the biggest misunderstanding of them all?
I mean, what if, instead of being a list of ingredients that make up the world, Wuxing is actually a framework, kind of like software for your brain, designed not just to describe what's happening now, but to actually model and even predict the way things are going to change?
Okay, so to really get what whooshing is, let's start by clearing up what it's not.
So the common view, the one you see on the left, is that Wuxing is all about answering the question, what is the world made of? But the sources we're looking at suggest it's answering a much more interesting, more dynamic question, how does the world work? See the difference? It's not about substance, it's all about process. So really, at its core, Wuxing is a thinking tool. It's a symbolic language that gives us a set of labels, a way to make sense of a world that is just constantly in flux. It's how you put a framework on the beautiful chaos of constant change. So, if it's a language, what are its basic words? What's the grammar? Let's break that down. The first and most important word you have to know is qi. Now, try to forget the idea of it being some mystical energy or substance. Think of qi as the verb of the universe. It's the raw, unseeable dynamic that drives everything, from a star-going supernova to a thought just popping into your head. Okay, so if qi is this invisible force, how do we even see it or talk about it? Well, that's where sing comes in. Sing is how we perceive qi. It's the character, the personality, the relatively stable pattern that qi takes at any given moment. So, for example, think of a plant growing. That underlying life force pushing it up, that's its qi. But the observable state of growing and expanding, that's its sing. And that's what we can classify. And this right here, this redefines the elements completely. They aren't materials. They're classifications for how qi is behaving. So as you can see here, wood isn't a tree. It's the process of growth and expansion. Fire isn't a flame. It's peak activity, that moment of acceleration. Earth is all about stability and transformation. Metal is contraction, consolidation. And water, that's about storage and latency. They're simply labels for the 5 fundamental ways any system can change. Now, this is where it gets really, really powerful. Because once you understand wuxing as a language for change, you can start using it as a model for prediction. And listen, this isn't about fortune-telling or peering into a crystal ball. It's about having a logical, structured process. It's a way to take a snapshot of a system right now and then calculate its most likely path forward. So here's the software in action. First, you identify the main driver of change in a system. That's your main qi. Then you model its current state using one of those 5 phases we just talked about. Step 3, analyze its direction and strength. Next, you calculate how it's going to interact with other parts of the system using these relationship functions. You add the context of time. Is this thing just getting started or is it winding down? And finally, you get an output, the most probable trend and path of change. And check this out. This is where these ancient concepts become incredibly modern. Shang, which means to promote or nourish, that's basically a positive feedback loop. Qi, to inhibit or control, that's a negative feedback loop, the kind that keeps a system stable. And then you have Cheng and Wu, which describe what happens when those feedback loops go haywire, either an overpowering constraint or some kind of rebellious disruption in the system. So let's put all of this together and see this ancient framework for what it really is. It's actually a surprisingly sophisticated systems model. Think of it this way. The 5 phases of wuxing, wood, fire, earth, metal, and water. They're essentially a set of state variables. I mean, in modern science, those are the key measurements you use to describe the condition of any dynamic system. And those relationships, Sheng and Ke, well, they're the rules of the system. They are the relationship functions that define exactly how those state variables are going to interact, how they promote and inhibit one another. So when you put it all together, the state variables and the functions that govern them, the flow of qi described by wuxing is, well, it's nothing less than an ancient model of a dynamic system. It's a complete self-regulating framework for understanding how things change over time. It's pretty amazing. So, what does this all actually mean for us today?
It means we can use this ancient tool not as some kind of belief system, but as a really practical method for seeing the world differently.
This quote from the source material just captures the whole idea perfectly. It says, "The ancients established symbols to observe change. We should now establish models to deduce its mechanics." This shows we're not just repeating old ideas, we're translating their powerful logic into a modern way of thinking. And that really leaves us with a final question for you. If you stopped seeing the world as just a collection of static things, and you started seeing it as a system of dynamic processes, of growth, acceleration, stability, contraction, and latency, what new patterns of change could you begin to see in your own life, in your work, or in the world all around you?